Hi everyone, welcome to America's Best Tales, where each week we listen to 3 amazing animal rescue stories, and then the Oracle decides which one touched us the most.
It's true. I'm Farrah White with Arthur E. Benjamin and Bandit, and get ready to hear some incredible stories of rescue, hope, and unconditional love. America's Best Tales starts now.
Before we talk about our first contestant today, I want to remind you of last week's story of Ellie Harris in Australia, who's trying to adopt a dog from soy dogs in Thailand to end the terrible trade of dogs being stolen from families and turned into food. We need a foster who's willing to foster the dog for 6 months to get it into Australia for Ellie, and you can reach us at arthur@americandogrescue.org if you'd like to foster that dog for 6 months. And now to our first contestant.
Yes.
Our first contestant today is Pappy. You'll remember Pappy from our show and from the news. He was the dog that unfortunately was found with a plastic jar over his head, preventing him from being able to defend himself, and his paw was also cut to provide a blood scent. The story of a bait dog for sure. We're happy to tell you he's doing great. He's looking for treats.
He's found them.
And he actually looks great. Pappy was adopted by Nancy of Animal Allies of Texas. Nancy, Pappy, and Melody are all here with us today, and thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Now, I know you had told us a little bit about Pappy's story. Why don't you recap it and tell us again, just for maybe those who hadn't tuned in?
It started on August 22nd. There was a plea that went out locally here in the Dallas area looking for people who could come and help try to capture him. He had been on the street for at least a week prior, with us thinking not being able to drink or eat, much less defend himself from any additional damage. In the end, we were able to get him to the vet office and get the jar off of his head and start the process of healing. They realized about a day and a half into his care that he was not going to be able to keep the toe and part of the paw that had been cut open. They scheduled a surgery that Wednesday, and look at him now. Happy 7 toes.
He looks great. Do you remember the first time you saw him?
I do. Those video clips, those very first video clips that we got, thank goodness for all the technology we have at our fingertips nowadays, but almost immediately I had that feeling in my gut that this wasn't an accident, that we were seeing the leftovers of a bait fight.
Well, people don't get and truly appreciate what that jar was like.
No.
I know that Pappy is just curious about it now and isn't that scared, but that is what was over his head. Yeah. And there's no mistake. He didn't put his head into that.
No. No, this was
the
cut.
edges are smoothed down. They were cut.
It was specifically cut and to be used for that.
What an incredibly sad story, and what a...
Well, we're keeping the jar. We're turning it into a donation jar.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So,
and initially we were very worried because Pappy was not the friendliest dog the first few days. He was in a large room at the vet's office, and when people would come in to start treating him, he growled a little bit, but as you can see, he's made a complete turnaround. He's had huge impact because we've gotten emails from all over the United States, from Australia, from England, and amazingly, so many people did not know what a bait dog was. And so he's been able to educate people about bait dogs and about dog fighting and all the attending crime that goes with dog fighting. And he's I think a real winner. I mean, he's a success story because he hasn't let what happened to him affect his wonderful personality.
No, he's got a great demeanor.
Yeah, he's a big goofy dog.
And
he wants to go play.
There was a special moment where he was with some kids and they threw him a party.
Oh yeah, Melody will tell you that story.
Yes, this wonderful family over in Oak Cliff that are homeschoolers wanted to do something to contribute, and they held a Friday evening Pappy party, porch party. And friends and neighbors and folks from the community came over and enjoyed food that had been donated and beverages that had been donated. And there were all sorts of wonderful toys and stuff that were collected. And we had an opportunity before Pappy went to his foster home to let him see all of the wonderful presents that he received from the party. So.
And I have not
special.
adopted him. I'd love to. But
Oh, okay.
I'm fostering him.
Okay.
And he's great with my pack of dogs. And as you saw in the film clip, he's wonderful with children. And he's looking for a forever home.
Now, how has he impacted you personally?
This makes me cry. We've all heard the stories about Michael Vick. And we know one of the Vick dogs that lives here in Dallas.
Wow.
But bait dogs and dog fighting are now very personal because I can't ever hear about them again without seeing this face and knowing the good boy, good burp.
That's a good full tummy.
Yeah, and knowing you know what he went through. I mean, he had the stab wound in his paw. You know, lost the toe. He had scars on his back. But
Silly boy.
yeah, crazy boy. But he's just terrific. I mean, he's come through this, come to the other side, and is such a sweet and loving dog. And it's a real victory. I had an email Monday from an animal shelter in New Mexico. They have a bait dog in who wasn't quite as lucky. He's going to be all right. And he's going to a rescue group. But we're getting emails now from people in shelters and other rescue groups who don't know about bait dogs and want to know why this is so prevalent.
And I think we need to not miss the opportunity here. Pappy is available for adoption, and we're looking for a wonderful home for him to spend his forever life.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
please contact us if you're interested in adopting Pappy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess he's gained how much?
About 10 to 12 pounds and has maybe 5 more pounds to go.
5 more pounds.
But he looks
to go.
great.
He's beautiful.
Yeah, he really is a beautiful dog. And he's so good with other dogs and with kids. He's not real fond of kitty cats, or maybe he's too fond, we can say.
Right. He loves them so much.
Yes. And as you saw, he likes food.
Right. Well, he's wonderful, and thank you for fostering him and finding him and helping him. And thanks so much for telling us your amazing story.
Thank you
Because
so
it is so
much.
important to get that out there. So Pappy is here on behalf of Animal Allies of Texas, and you can find out more online at animalalliesoftexas.org.
And we'll be right back with our second contestant.
Yes, so stay with us. Welcome back to America's Best Tales, where we celebrate all animal rescues. Our second contestant today is Norman, a beagle who's a true fighter.
Norman.
Yes.
Ooh.
He's a
Remember that
sweetheart.
song?
So tell us a little bit about Norman, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
I can't sing.
Norman actually started out for me as a transport. I was just supposed to pick him up and take him to an event. Instead, he was actually intercepted as an owner surrender at the shelter.
Oh.
One of our fellow volunteers intercepted his surrender, knowing that he was never going to make it out alive, that if he went in, he'd never be pulled. Either adopted or probably rescued, because he was older, he was obviously in bad shape, he was just going to be an expensive dog to take in. So she saw him, and right away she called our coordinator, and he said, of course, we can't let him go in. So that's where I came in. I got the call that said, we're just going to transport him, we're going to take him to an event, and then you'll drive him out to a boarding facility where he'll stay until he finds either a foster or forever home. So I go to meet Norm, and when I pick him up, he comes lumbering out. The saddest sight I've ever seen. He was hacking and wheezing. Turns out he had heartworms.
No.
And
A very late stage.
very late stage, which we then found out later. He was in very late stage heartworms, basically in congestive heart failure at that point. I got him out to the event, and I knew right away that I was not going to be able to send him to boarding. So I talked to Jim Winger with Rescue Me, and we decided that I was going to foster Norman myself. That I didn't know how I was going to help him, but I knew that I had to do something for him. I took him in, and like I said, his heartworms were so bad that we couldn't even start the original heartworm treatment. It was like 2 or 3 months. We originally had to start with antibiotics, corticosteroids, anti-inflammatories. His heart was just horribly inflamed, his lungs. This dog was practically dead. So after 2 or 3 months, the vet was finally ready to do the actual heartworm treatment. And we still couldn't do the regular treatment. We had to, it's usually injections in the lower back. They're very painful, 24 hours apart.
How many of them are there usually?
There's 2 to 3.
Yeah, 2 to 3 usually.
Instead, we had to do Norman's every 30 days. We had to do 1 injection and wait 30 days. They said, you know, it was going to kill him.
It was just too much.
It was going to be too much for him. After that first injection, I remember talking with the vet, and she had told me that I needed to carry him outside the potty, if possible, that they wanted me to keep him as still as possible. Too much movement could cause those heartworms to break up and ultimately cause an embolism and for him to die.
Looks like he cooperated.
Yes.
Yeah, he did.
He had no problem with the resting phase.
Exactly. Luckily, yeah, he likes laying down. But that scared me, and I asked her right away, should I leave him with you at the ER overnight? And she said, no, because if he doesn't make it, I'd rather him be at home with you.
Aww.
And that just, that broke my heart, scared me, everything else.
I know, it's a sad story, huh, Norm?
That's right, that's your sad face. You know your sad face.
So, and how is he today? He looks great.
We actually just got the test results back last month, and he is heartworm free.
Yes.
Norman!
And this is it's a year-long process
Exactly.
that it's taken to get Norman back to healthy. And so Jill adopted Norman herself.
After going through this for 9 months, really, I realized I couldn't let him go. That we'd been through too much together, and he, in our house, is where he belonged.
That's amazing. Well, after taking care of him through all of that, the hard time, and now that he's in such good shape. And he looks very happy.
He is. He is.
Now, Meredith, tell us a little bit, why do you think that Norman would have been in such good condition if Jill hadn't come along?
Absolutely not. No way. Jill absolutely took amazing care of him, went above and beyond. You know, not everybody can lift a dog and take them out to potty every single time they need to go out. Treating heartworms is so detrimental on the dog as far as their health, and it just really, really, really makes them very weak and vulnerable to infection, as well as, you know, like she said, heart disease and ultimately death. And so, you know, the care of getting the heartworms, which is why it's also so important for everyone to put their dogs on heartworm prevention.
But test them first.
Yes.
Test them every single year when they're going to get their annuals, as well as getting them on regular monthly heartworm treatments. So your dog doesn't have to go through something like this. And it's very expensive, too. It's a lot cheaper to prevent than it is to treat.
This was so easily avoidable. And another thing is that when I first met Norman, he still had his original collar and tags from his previous owners, because like I said, it was an interception. He never made it into the shelter. And I sat up nights with him as he coughed and wheezed and hacked, and I looked at that tag. As a matter of fact, I still have it. This old collar had his owner's old information on it. And there were many nights at 2 o'clock in the morning that I thought about calling them and letting them hear what they had done to him, and that let them know that I cared about him and that I was taking care of their dog.
Yeah, and you were cleaning up someone else's mess.
Absolutely. Which is unfortunately what we do in rescue a lot, you know. A lot.
Sure. Well, I gotta say, I mean, he looks amazing. He looks so happy and calm, and clearly he would not even be here if it wasn't for you ladies.
He's very
And
chill.
just to make no mistake, it's critical that you test your dog before beginning heartworm medication, because the medication itself, if they have heartworms, can be lethal to the dog.
Absolutely.
They have to be given the shots before they can begin the medication. So test your dog, and then get every dog on heartworm
And then
medication.
do some prevention.
Absolutely, once a month, especially you know, in Texas, mosquitoes are everywhere.
Yeah, he
Well,
had his
special
yesterday.
thanks to Jill Vrla and Meredith Hammock.
Thank you.
for
Thank
being
you.
here. Norman is playing on behalf of DFW Rescue Me. Go to dfwrescueme.org to find out more information. We'll take another break.
And then we'll be right back for our third and final story, and then later, the Oracle will pick a winner. Welcome back to America's Best Tales. There are so many people who risk their own lives to save dogs on the streets of Dallas. Two of those people are with us today, and we welcome you, ladies.
Yes, we have Julie Cassidy and Tawana Couch with Society for Companion Animals, and they have rescued many dogs, but one in particular that stood out to them. The dog's name is Cassidy. So Julie, can you tell us Cassidy's story?
Yes, it was about 8 years ago. I was driving home from work, and it was near Carroll and I-30, pouring down rain, looked over in the field and saw a dog. And so I pulled over, and that's always a scary situation, not knowing, you know, if the dog's going to run out into the freeway.
Sure.
Well, I opened the passenger door, and the dog just jumped in. And as soon as it jumped in, I could smell like infection. You could just smell that smell. And anyway, I ended up going home and calling my kids. So I called them and said, get a bath together. You know, I've got a dog I've rescued, which is very typical. And the kids, you know, ended up filling the bath for me. And as it turns out, the infection was coming from a shoelace that had been tied around this dog's neck and was embedded into the neck. So we ended up cutting it off, bathing the dog, and then I ended up calling a local vet, which wasn't my own. So that's kind of how the irony of this story is. I called this particular vet because I knew that they had like a pet orphanage there. And I said, listen, I've got this dog. I've already got 3 of my own. Can you help me treat it for this infection and maybe help me potentially find a home? So I made an appointment, and as I walked in the door of this veterinary clinic, the girl that was working behind the counter said, oh, a corgi. And that's when I was like, is this what this is? I didn't know what a corgi looked like. And so anyway, she's like, yeah, I just lost my corgi. And so anyway, the story goes that I said, well, I'm going to need to find a home for this dog. And she ended up deciding to keep the dog. And I helped with a little bit of the vet bills and left it there with her. But what was funny about it was 2 days later, she ended up calling me and telling me that before you know, she took the dog home, she had called home and told her sister that, hey, and it was a little sister, she goes, I've got a dog I'm bringing home, and etc. So when she got home, she said, her sister said, Mom, I want to name it Cassidy, not knowing who the person was that actually brought it to her. So it's just kind of an ironic story that, you know, kind of all the stars were in line to be there when that dog was there, and for it to jump in the car, and then to go to a vet clinic that I normally don't go to, and this girl that just lost her corgi, and then, you know, name it Cassidy. So it's just kind of one of those nice stories that it all just goes well.
Very heartwarming story.
Yeah, definitely. And sad and timely. I mean, it was all timing that you happened to pull up and see
Exactly.
the dog
you
right
know,
there.
Pouring down rain, and like I said, those are always kind of precarious situations when you have a dog that's on the freeway. You never know what circumstances they're in, but this dog obviously had been through something horrific and got away and was, you know, more than willing to just jump into the car. So it was just kind of a nice story.
Now, Tawana, how many dogs do you think you rescue per year?
per year. This year, I'm up at 228 right now.
Wow.
As of today.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's definitely several hundred per year that I rescue. And street dogs, what Julie did is amazing because they really are truly the ones in most need. I mean, they're in there with no food, no water, and like Cassidy, an infection, and going on, no vet to go to, and trying to survive the odds of weather and everything. And it's incredible what Julie did. And there's special people like Julie out there that will open their door and save a dog in the street. It's the most rewarding thing. They need help, probably more than a lot of other animals out there because they're against the odds.
Tawana, what should people do when they come across a dog in the street? How do you approach them? What do you do?
Well, personally, I always carry a bag of dog food in my car.
Well, if they don't have dog food,
if
how
you
do you
don't have
approach
dog food, then get out, get down on your knees, get down on the ground, kind of interact with the dog, see if it'll come to you. Sometimes you're lucky. And in Julie's case, she got lucky, opened the door, and boom, it came. And, so you try.
How do you know if the dog's aggressive? How do you know if the dog, how does a person help the dog and protect themselves?
That's a good question. And because you don't know the history of a dog on the street. And I always keep a distance because I actually have been chased a couple times. And so you get low, you stay close to your car. Because if you do have to run, be right by your car, jump in. So, but most of the time the dogs on the street are scared. They're wanting help or they need help. So you rarely, find an aggressive dog. Yeah.
Well, and Tawana, you are notorious for going
That's the
to
right word.
all kinds of areas of town, day and night, and putting yourself out there literally multiple times a day.
Yeah.
So when it comes to talking about people putting themselves in harm's way for an animal, I mean, you are.
Yeah. And you never know what the dog's going to do. And you just, be cautious, but also, do your best to try to save that dog. Yeah.
Well, and you said 228 dogs this year?
Mm-hmm. As of today, I actually rescued and sent off 16 dogs this morning to a no-kill shelter in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So.
And I heard that one of them was too big for his crate?
Yeah, and luckily the airline sells crates.
Okay. Who knew?
Yeah, I'm like brand new, and I'm like, oh, we'll buy it.
Well,
so, yeah.
You got to have a crate. Well, ladies, thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for your story, and thank you so much for stopping your car on the side of the road that day, and clearly, Tawana, for all that you do and continue to do.
And Julie and Tawana are here on behalf of the Society for Companion Animals. Go to societyforcompanionanimals.org for more information.
Yes, because you can find it there. And when we come back, we're going to reveal today's America's Best Tale. So don't go anywhere.
I'm not sure the Oracle's sleeping.
We're going to wake up the Oracle. So stay with us.
Time to reveal our winner. The Oracle has spoken, and someone's arguing with the Oracle. Now remember, the winner will not only get $1,000 today, but we'll be with you in a minute. We'll be eligible for the grand prize of $5,000 at the end of the year. So let's review the stories.
Yes. Number one, we had Pappy, which was the rescued bait dog found with a jug on his head and his paw cut. Number two, Norman here, who's now showing off his new vocal capacity on behalf of DFW Rescue Me. And
number 3, Julie and Tawana, representing the Society of Companion Animals, and Cassidy. So let's reveal our winners.
yes.
Start. Go ahead. You start.
Okay.
Third
Well,
place.
what is it? Okay, so starting with our third place winner and a check actually for $250 is
Cassidy.
Norm, that's nothing to eat.
that's right. We will get to him.
And our second place winner at $500 and getting a check for $500 is
That's right.
Norman!
There you go, Norman. You always
Thank
and he barely
you.
would take it.
and
I'm killing him.
last but not least
Yes.
is our fabulous dog that survived a jar in his head, a cut on his paw, being a bait dog.
Pappy.
Ta-da.
Yes,
Happy,
absolutely.
who is available.
Pappy, do you want this? Yes, for adoption.
Who is available for adoption, and who Bandit says will make a very good pet for whoever out there would like to adopt him.
Yeah, and he absolutely will. We want to thank all of you guys for being here.
You're all very special guests, and your stories are very special, and we really appreciate that. You sharing them with the audience and everything that you do for animals.
No, absolutely. And what's so nice about things like this is everyone is a winner. So it's and the $1,000 prize, now actually Pappy is qualified to compete at our end of the year competition.
Yeah, and we can consider that the first contribution in his donation jar.
Happy thanks you very much.
That's right. His donation jar, which was the jar that was actually on his head, they were going to turn that into a donation jar.
Notice how quiet it's gotten around here. I wonder why.
Absolutely, I know. It was so vocal a little while ago. And
Well, wait, Norman's almost
eating
finished with the
cookies,
cookie,
right.
and he'll be back with his howling. But join us next week for 3 new animal rescue stories. Those stories will be just as moving as these stories, and we're happy to present them each week.
absolutely. And to find out more about America's Best Tales and For the Love of Dogs, you can go to AmericanDogRescue.org. You can also find the history of our shows. You can see some of our other shows online and also see what's coming up. And as always, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. All of your support is important. And the more that you can share our show with your friends and people that you know and animal lovers all over, the more that we can get this kind of attention out to all of these wonderful rescue organizations that really do so much to help all of the dogs in the community.
So we'd love a home for Pappy, and we'd love a foster for the dog that's going to Australia.
Absolutely.
And Bandit says, I'm the Oracle, and we'll see you again next week when we have 3 more stories for you.
Absolutely.
He thinks we're puppets.
We are his puppets.
Thank you, ladies. It was really nice having you all.
I'm Farrah White.
See you next week, this time, this station.
I love it. You know,
Great ending.
Absolutely.
That was a good dog biscuit.